New York City in the summer of 1976 was gripped by a suffocating heat and a deep escalating paranoia. An unknown assailant was stalking the darkest, quietest corners of the outer boroughs. His targets were exclusively young couples, attacked without warning while parked in secluded spots. The weapon used in these attacks was highly unusual, a heavy .44 caliber bulldog revolver, originally designed for sky marshals to drop a target without penetrating an airplane fuselage. Detectives noticed a disturbing pattern. The shooter specifically targeted young women with long, dark hair. Because there were no known connections between the shooter and the victims, anyone fitting that description felt like prey. That absolute randomness paralyzed 8 million residents. The terror deepened when the shooter started leaving handwritten letters at the crime scenes, directly taunting the police and the press. This is a letter the killer sent to Daily News columnist Jimmy Breslin. Notice the greeting, JB, the mocking tone, and at the bottom, those strange, occult-style cross symbols. This is also where the killer proudly claimed his infamous moniker, the Son of Sam. The writing itself is packed with grandiose, unhinged prose. He calls himself a monster and Beelzebub, claiming a bloodthirsty demon commanded him to hunt the streets for victims. In response, the NYPD assembled Operation Omega, a task force of 300 officers. While necessary, this massive show of force inadvertently gave the killer exactly what he wanted: validation. Fueled by front-page headlines and a sprawling police dragnet, a violent street shooter was elevated into a mythological, demonic force in the public imagination. By July of 1977, the city was bracing for the anniversary of the first attacks. The shooter finally struck again in Brooklyn, fatally wounded 20-year-old Stacy Moskowitz and blinding Robert Violante. But this time, a local resident named Cecilia Davis noticed something. Just before the gunfire, she saw a suspicious man ripping a parking ticket off a yellow Ford Galaxy parked near a fire hydrant. Investigators dug through the citations issued that night. That single routine parking violation led them straight to a quiet apartment building in Yonkers. When police surrounded his car, they were braced for a monster. Instead, they found a smiling 24-year-old postal clerk named David Berkowitz. A multi-million-dollar manhunt involving hundreds of the city's best detectives was ultimately solved by a completely mundane parking error. During his confession, Berkowitz spun a bizarre story. He claimed his neighbor's black Labrador, Harvey, was possessed by an ancient demon that barked orders at him to kill. This diagram breaks down the reality of those claims. FBI profiler Robert Russwer completely dismantled the demon dog narrative, exposing it as a highly calculated lie designed specifically to secure an insanity defense. The real psychological profile was much more grounded. Berkowitz was driven by deep-seated trauma surrounding his adoption, intense social isolation, and a violent, overwhelming resentment toward women. Looking at his earlier history on this graph, you can see a terrifying escalation. Long before he picked up a gun, Berkowitz meticulously recorded over 1,400 acts of arson across the city. The Son of Sam was never a demon. He was a deeply inadequate, isolated man, using violence to manufacture a sense of sexual control and public notoriety. Berkowitz avoided a high-profile trial by abruptly pleading guilty to all charges, resulting in a staggering sentence of 365 years in prison. But closing the trial didn't close the questions. Several eyewitness police sketches looked nothing like Berkowitz, depicting a much taller, slimmer man, which strongly suggested he didn't act alone. Investigative journalist Maury Terry spent years compiling evidence that Berkowitz was actually a lookout for a violent, underground satanic cult network that coordinated the shootings. High-level sources later alleged that Brooklyn District Attorney Eugene Gold deliberately buried evidence of these accomplices, eager to secure a fast, clean conviction. In their desperation to calm a terrified public, the authorities rushed to close the books, creating fertile ground for decades of theories that the full truth was covered up. The immediate legal fallout of the case was the creation of Son of Sam laws. These statutes were drafted to ensure that criminals could not legally profit from selling the rights to their stories for books or movies. Today, Berkowitz works as a prison clerk. He claims to be a born-again Christian, and he actively refuses to attend his own mandated parole hearings, stating he deserves to stay behind bars. His quiet, heavily structured reality inside a maximum security facility stands in stark contrast to the chaotic legend he left behind on the outside. The Son of Sam remains a chilling case study. It shows exactly how public panic, combined with an intense media spectacle, can take an ordinary, resentful loner and build